The classroom felt unusually quiet as Emily Carter sat alone at the old piano. 20 students watched from their seats while Mr. Whitmore stood nearby with folded arms. The ticking wall clock echoed through the room. Emily took a slow breath, preparing herself for the challenge ahead, knowing every eye was on her and expecting her to fail or freeze under pressure. Emily gently pressed the first piano key. A soft note floated through the classroom and settled into the silence. She moved carefully from one note to the next, keeping her focus steady and controlled. The students listened without speaking, while Mr. Whitmore observed with quiet confidence, waiting to see if she would make a mistake or lose her rhythm at any moment. As the melody continued, small reactions began to appear around the room. One student leaned forward with curiosity. Another slowly lowered a notebook, and several faces that once looked bored now showed clear surprise. The music was pulling everyone in, filling every corner of the classroom with attention and shifting the entire atmosphere. Emily remained focused on the piano keys, fully blocking out every pair of eyes watching her from behind. Her hands moved with growing confidence, connecting each note smoothly and without hesitation. The tension inside her slowly faded as the music carried her forward, giving her calm determination and steady control over every movement. The most difficult part of the piece was approaching, and Emily knew every student was waiting to see if she would fail here. Without hesitation, her fingers moved faster across the keys as months of practice guided her movements. She faced the challenge directly with courage, refusing to slow down or break focus. Mr. Whitmore watched closely from across the classroom, his confident expression slowly beginning to change. Every note Emily played seemed to challenge what he believed was possible. The certainty he had carried into the room started to weaken as surprise quietly replaced his earlier confidence and control. The performance grew stronger with every passing moment, and the classroom became completely silent. No whispers or distractions remained among the students. Emily played with remarkable control and emotional depth, and the music filled the room so completely that everyone felt they were witnessing something truly special and unforgettable. The final section arrived, and Emily continued without fear or hesitation. Her fingers moved smoothly across the piano keys as the melody reached its emotional peak. The atmosphere felt almost magical, and every student remained frozen in deep attention, waiting for the final moments of her performance to arrive. Then the final note echoed through the classroom before slowly fading into complete silence. Emily lowered her hands and looked at the piano. For a few seconds, nobody moved or spoke. The silence felt endless as students tried to fully process what they had just seen and heard in front of them. A single clap suddenly broke the silence, followed by another and then more. Soon the entire classroom stood and applauded together. Emily felt warmth spread through her heart as she realized the support was genuine. Every clap carried respect, admiration, and a recognition she had never truly felt before in that room. Tears gathered in Emily's eyes as the applause continued all around her. For so long, she had felt invisible, ignored, and misunderstood by others. Now the same people who once doubted her were celebrating her success. The moment felt unreal, and deep gratitude filled her completely from within. As the applause faded, Mr. Whitmore slowly stepped forward from where he stood. The confidence he once displayed was completely gone. He looked at Emily for several long moments before speaking, and the entire classroom grew silent again, sensing that something serious and important was about to be revealed. Mr. Whitmore began sharing a story from his past, speaking about a talented young musician whose abilities had once been overlooked and misunderstood. The students listened carefully as his voice softened with emotion. Hidden within his words was a lesson and regret he had carried for many years without sharing. Emily listened quietly as the story continued, her expression slowly softening. The anger she once felt toward her teacher began to fade away. Standing before her was no longer a strict instructor, but a human being carrying regret and pain. Understanding slowly replaced resentment as she saw him differently. The classroom remained peaceful as the conversation finally came to an end. Emily looked at the piano one last time and smiled softly. The challenge was over, but something greater had begun inside her. Doubt had given way to understanding, opening the door to healing, hope, and a new beginning. Emily sat alone at the piano As the classroom fell completely silent, her finger touched the first key, and a soft note echoed through the room. Every student watched without moving, as if even breathing too loudly might break the moment. Mr. Whitmore stood nearby, confident that she would fail sooner or later. Yet Emily showed no sign of fear. With calm determination, she slowly began her performance, allowing the music to speak where words never could. She continued playing with careful control, letting each note settle naturally into the silence before the next one arrived. The classroom remained perfectly still as students focused on her every movement. No one whispered or looked away. Mr. Whitmore's confidence started to fade as the music grew steadier and more precise with every passing second. What he expected to be a struggle was becoming something far more impressive than he had imagined. A strange shift appeared in the room as students began reacting in ways they never expected. One leaned forward with curiosity, while another slowly lowered a notebook. Others exchanged surprised glances before turning their full attention back to Emily. The impossible challenge was slowly becoming reality. She remained completely focused on the piano, unaffected by the growing attention. As the atmosphere transformed around her, Emily's hands moved with perfect control across the piano keys. Every note flowed naturally into the next, without hesitation or uncertainty. The doubt that once filled the room was gradually turning into admiration and respect. She stayed locked in her concentration, ignoring every reaction around her. The students watched in complete silence, realizing they were witnessing something much more extraordinary than they had expected. The most difficult section finally arrived, the moment everyone had been waiting for. Many believed this was where Emily would fail and prove the challenge impossible. Instead, she remained calm. Her fingers moved faster with confidence, precision, and strength. What had been designed to break her spirit was becoming proof of her resilience. The tension in the room grew stronger as every student watched in amazement. Mr. Whitmore could no longer hide his shock. The confidence he carried into the classroom disappeared completely as he watched Emily continue flawlessly. Every note challenged his expectations and forced him to reconsider everything he believed about her abilities. He stood silently, unable to look away, realizing that he had underestimated not only her talent, but also her determination and courage. The final note echoed through the classroom and slowly faded into silence. Emily lowered her hands and stared quietly at the piano keys. For several long seconds, no one moved or spoke. The room felt frozen in time as everyone processed what they had just witnessed. It was no longer the silence of doubt or judgment. It was the silence that follows a moment so powerful that words seem unnecessary. A single clap broke the silence, followed by another, and then many more. Within moments, the entire classroom was standing and applauding. The sound filled every corner of the room with warmth and sincerity. Emily felt tears gathering in her eyes as she finally experienced something she had longed for. Years of doubt, loneliness, and criticism were being replaced by respect, recognition, and genuine appreciation. While the applause continued around him, Mr. Whitmore remained completely still. He slowly removed his glasses and lowered his gaze toward the floor. His expression revealed regret instead of pride. For the first time, the respected teacher seemed vulnerable and deeply human. The moment exposed something heavy he had carried inside for years, and everyone in the room could sense the weight of it. When the room finally quieted, Emily looked at him calmly. There was no anger in her eyes and no desire for revenge. Instead, she felt a quiet sense of understanding. She realized that people often carry hidden pain and regrets that others never see. That realization softened everything she once felt toward him and allowed her to see him in a completely different way. A few days later, Emily received a scholarship letter at home. Standing beside the kitchen table, she watched her grandfather read it carefully. Pride and emotion filled his face as sunlight streamed through the window. The letter represented years of hard work, sacrifice, and perseverance. For Emily, it was more than an opportunity. It was proof that persistence and belief in herself had finally opened a new door. That evening, her grandfather opened an old memory box and placed a cassette tape into a recorder. Together they listened as a young child played piano through the crackling speaker. The notes were imperfect, uneven, and filled with mistakes. Then Emily realized the child on the recording was her. Hearing those sounds brought back memories she had forgotten. and reminded her where her journey had truly begun. Tears formed in Emily's eyes as the recording continued to play. She heard mistakes, laughter, determination, and hope hidden inside every note. Her grandfather smiled gently and reminded her that she had never stopped trying, even during her hardest moments. Every setback had taught her something valuable. Listening to that recording helped her understand how far she had come through patience, courage, and resilience. Weeks later, Emily sat alone inside the academy practice room while rain tapped softly against the windows. The piano stood before her just as it always had, yet everything felt different now. The fear that once controlled her was gone. The loneliness that once weighed on her heart had faded away. In its place stood quiet confidence, built through challenges she had overcome and lessons she had learned. As sunlight finally broke through the clouds, Emily placed her hands on the piano and began to play again. This time she was not trying to prove anything to anyone. She was not seeking approval, recognition, or applause. She played simply because she loved the music. In that peaceful moment, she discovered true freedom. Sometimes resilience reveals hidden strength, and sometimes hope returns one gentle note at a time.